About San Jose, it's big. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of homes and buildings and businesses, and why is that relevant? There's a lot of stuff. Gary was talking earlier about the amount of construction and demolition materials out there, a lot of renovation projects, a lot of new construction projects. We're dealing with that type of material on a very large order, and it was important for us to do something about it. So why C&D? We did a waste characterization study in 1998, and we found that 31%, basically a third of our waste stream, was construction and demolition material. In 1998, we did a gate survey following that, and found that 26% of the material getting to the landfill was coming from the self-haul community. So we consider the self-haul community those folks, Joe homeowner who's moving stuff from his house. There are a lot of contractors out there that aren't franchise haulers, but they have their own hauling arm of their company because they find it's much more efficient for them to do it that way for scheduling and as well as cost. We followed that up the next year with a gate survey. We found that 50% of the construction and demolition waste that was getting to the facilities was buried. Part of what I'm going to be discussing today is our SEED program, Construction Demolition Diversion Deposit, tying that to infrastructure and looking at the infrastructure that you have. And I know there's been some challenges on infrastructure. I think that's what most of us are dealing with, whether it's not having enough facilities or having land use issues, trying to get facilities permitted. But as you continue to look at your programs or look at your waste stream, try to figure out what you're going to do with the material, the infrastructure is terribly important and a major consideration in the decisions on how you design your programs. And I don't have this slide here. Self-haul. I was talking about that earlier. The part that we measure in San Jose is through our offices. We have residential contracts. We have franchise haulers. They will provide reports to us. Through the disposal reporting system, we find that there's a whole slug of material out there that we're not tracking. But based on the information we do have, we can back out and we find out that the self-haul community in that particular year generated 165,000 tons. Now, the reason why this is important to us is because the self-haul community operates outside of San Jose's incentive-based programs. So we don't have any mandates in San Jose. Our city council is not supportive of mandates. They're not supportive of bans, or at least they haven't been in our various attempts over the years. But all of our programs are essentially pay as you throw, whether it's residential or commercial. The more you generate, the more you pay. The more you recycle, the less you pay. So in a nutshell, we have a deposit program. We thought about doing coupons. In fact, that was what the staff had cooked up earlier, and unfortunately they were unable to make it work. There were some fatal flaws in it, so leave it to the military to pull it off. They have weapons. We're armed with vests and flashlights, so they can get compliance that way. But essentially, somebody pays a deposit. They take their materials to a certified facility, and then they send their information back to the city, and we refund their money. All of it, hopefully. The deposit amounts, very similar to what Lorraine was explaining earlier. There are three main categories. You've got new construction, remodeling, and demolition. There are lots of subcategories that you'll find under there as you begin to delve into your programs, but essentially these are the three main nuts to crack. And you can see that the rates that we charge on our deposits came out of our economic modeling, where we found out that it costs a lot more to recycle materials that are coming out of a small or residential alteration. You got bathrooms, kitchen remodels with small loads and really mixed amounts of materials versus on the demolition side or new construction side, you've got a lot of materials that have already been segregated, much larger loads. The economies of scale come into play. So it's much higher on a residential alteration than any of the other deposit amounts. And we also have roofing. And a flat rate of $100. The Independent Roofing Contractors of California really helped us push that through because it would have been included under our residential alteration. So if you got a 2,000 square foot home, they're looking at a $2,000+ deposit. We know that the roofers operate on very, very thin margins. Talking with our planning folks and permit center, they said, you know what, you're going to chase these guys away from the permit center, and they'll be doing roofs illegally. So we came up with a $1,000 flat rate on that, and that's only for tear-offs. So when somebody's laying on a fresh new layer, not taking anything off, we don't charge a deposit on it. So deposits, lots of numbers up here. We do about 7,000 a year projects. The permit center does roughly, I think, 13,000 or more permits that they issue every year, but the deposits are actually paid on roughly 7,000. So again, large order of magnitude here. We found it very problematic in trying to evaluate whether or not we would do a solid waste plans. That would take a tremendous amount of people. We thought to review all those plans with that many permits, we thought plain and simple, we'll just do a straight deposit, look at the information when it comes in the end. We had to find a way to allow these 7,000 permittees to easily recycle their material. We knew we weren't going to change them into recyclers overnight. Which, let's see, moving down the list, $4 million in deposits on an annual basis, $1.5 million in refunds, and it's not because the people aren't recycling, they're just not asking for their money back. So this is a problem for us. I guess it's a good problem. There's a balance somewhere around $11 million sitting in the fund. So we're earning interest on it, that's nice. But we really need to get the money back to people, and we're going to be working with a consultant to do some programming within the system that will allow us to extract who hasn't gotten their money back yet and start sending letters to people. Of course, this requires staffing that we don't have yet. The city manager's office did approve a position for us. We're waiting for the council to approve the budget next month, and hopefully we can get a person in place to manage the program on a daily basis. 1 million square feet every year on average is what's been going through our program that we've been assessing deposits on, and roughly $1 billion in valuation on the projects. This past year, we had a really large project come through. It was, I forgot how many acres, but it was roughly 220,000 tons of debris that this particular project brought in. It was the old GE facility, and somebody completely demoed it. Right now it's sitting out there as bare dirt with some piles of crushed concrete. Mentioning roofing because that's one of the areas that we need to focus on, at least I think based on the data that we've been getting. And again, Lorraine, the waste characterization study identifies that there's lots of roofing potential, or potential for recovering roofing. Unfortunately, we're not getting the recovery level that we'd like. If you look on this chart here, you can see it split deposits with roofing and deposits without roofing. If we decided not to charge deposits on roofing, it would cut our workload in processing refund requests almost in half. So from an administrative perspective, it sounds like a good deal. And we're seriously considering dropping roofing out, because what we're finding is that the roofing industry doesn't travel far and wide looking for a place to process or bury their shingles. You know, they're all about roofing. They're not about recycling. They're generally. They're not about disposal. They're just about roofs, and they have waste. They have to get rid of it. We're finding that probably 99% of all the roofing jobs in San Jose, the materials from those jobs stay in San Jose, and they're going to one of our certified facilities. So it's already getting recycled. So we're asking the question, does it really make sense for us to continue the deposit on roofing? I mentioned money earlier. And what are you going to do with the money? If you look down there at item D, if you can read that, we did write into our municipal code that any monies generated from the program can really only be used for supporting the program, whether it's staffing, whether it's other recycling efforts, program efforts. And in this case here, let's see, develop or improve the infrastructure. We were thinking infrastructure all along. We did do some grants, which come up in this slide here. At the very beginning of the program, this is before we started taking deposits and had any money to give away, we had roughly we had $750,000 for the first 2 years that we had offered up to the landfill and processing community and any individuals who had some cool ideas on how they would divert more C&D from the landfills. They were spread out pretty broadly, but the ones that we awarded really focused on where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck, and also focused on mixed C&D, because again, based on our waste characterization study and the gate surveys, a lot of that material that wasn't getting recycled was mixed C&D, and so we wanted folks to implement some kind of programs at their facilities to capture mixed C&D and hopefully divert it. We did have some challenges with some of the awards that we gave out. Unfortunately, the challenges were related to permits. That is, the facilities weren't able to get the permits approved to do what they had proposed for us. And again, some of that raises the issue related to land use. There were some really good proposals, and unfortunately, the other arm, or another arm in the city, wasn't on board with what we had hoped to do and wouldn't approve the permits. Certified facilities. Now, we were looking at the infrastructure that we had in place as we were starting our program, and it wasn't quite the infrastructure that we needed nor wanted, and so we tried to find ways to convert these facilities and get them to do more recycling, and that was where the certification process came into play. It was basically, if somebody wants to get their money back from their deposit, they can take it to a certified facility, basically taking the recycling requirement off of the generator and putting it on to the processor or to the landfill. You can see that we've got a number of inert facilities there at the top, the dirt, rock, concrete, asphalt, and metals. Those have been in place for many, many years. We didn't have to do much to certify them other than stand there, kind of hold up a thumb and say, wow, look at all that stuff moving in and look at all that stuff moving out. It was a little bit more formal process than that, but you can see that we didn't really need to do much work to certify them. It was more of a formality. We wanted to get them on our list of certified facilities so that the people who were doing the work knew where they could take the materials. 5 landfills. There are 5 landfills in San Jose, and they're handling the bulk of the mixed C&D that's coming from the various projects. We have reuse salvage that's not located in San Jose. We have another wood facility not located in San Jose. We did have 2 carpet facilities. One of them disappeared. It was sort of wiped off of the property that it was located on because the landfill was located at a landfill, and the landfill decided that it wanted a different operation. They had an agreement with an individual to come in to process carpet, and they were doing approximately 10,000 tons a year of carpet. And unfortunately, there was a different business decision made by the landfill owner. They moved offices from another location for economic reasons and consolidation within their company, and decided they didn't need to have a carpet processing facility or operation at their landfill. Certification. Again, this is the Reader's Digest version on the certification. There are some very basic requirements. I don't have this. I'm going to have to look up here. An application for certification, I'll show you what that looks like. Again, it's very simple. What we want to do is get an idea of what's going to be happening at that facility. They need to tell us who the responsible parties are. They need to tell us what kinds of materials they've been accepting, what kind of materials they plan to accept, and what are they planning on doing with the materials themselves. But we also want the contact information. We also want some history on the performance of the facility. Some basic requirements of the facility operators, first and foremost, is that they need to be able to provide receipts to all of their customers who say, I have a seed load, here is my permit number. They're required to put the permit number on the receipt. They need to provide weights or volumes, the types of material, and hopefully, if there's a contractor or some company that hauled it there, we get that information as well. So we're able to have a pretty good idea of who's moving material around the city. And then, of course, other data as desired. We haven't done anything with that yet. We are going to, when we get the program filled, be able to do a lot more analysis on it and figure out how we can start fine-tuning things. And as far as fine-tuning things, there's reporting requirements. This is the generic version. This is what we would look at for each and every category of material. So we'd have this for concrete, we'd have it for asphalt, cardboard, metals, well, a whole slew of things, mixed C&D as well in particular. One of the things that in our program that we don't give credit for anymore, we phased it out, is alternate daily cover. So those facilities that had been using alternate daily cover had to wean themselves off of it. Or I guess you can, if you're going solely on the numbers, you see that some of the facilities have I guess, boosted their diversion rate by taking in some more of the heavies to offset what they're doing on alternate daily cover. Again, the facilities, you know, are very good at managing what comes in and what goes out and what they do with it at the location. There's several of the materials located at the bottom. Next to one of the red arrows, I think you see mixed C&D. That is by far the largest slug of material that we're getting at these 5 landfills, over 500,000 tons a year. And unfortunately, the diversion rate, I think says 56, let me see there, 56%. We'd like it to be a lot higher. Again, that's very challenging. Again, I talked about the mixed C&D loads earlier. The facilities probably could do better. We're hoping that as we get someone to manage the program and start working out what money is available, that we're going to do some more grants and target some of these materials that aren't getting recycled at the levels we'd like them to. One of the things that we're finding with the shingles is that a lot of them are being used for alternate daily cover. The wood ones are being sent off to waste energy for whatever BTU value is left in them. But primarily the shingles, unfortunately, are being used as ADC. You can see that some of the other materials up there have close to 100% recovery. We're not really concerned about that. Surprisingly, I mean, I thought that the concrete was going to be one of the highest tonnage materials that we're getting. But what you don't see is that the concrete and the asphalt and the metals are primarily going to those facilities that have been long established in San Jose. The numbers that don't show, you're seeing 1.5 million tons a year going through these facilities. What you're not seeing is the over 2 million tons a year that are going through all these other inert facilities that I said have been long-standing in the community. So the questions that you come up with, or that I come up with in trying to figure out where we go next and development of the program, is looking at the infrastructure that we have in place. What are the kinds of things we can do to change that infrastructure? And again, what we're finding in San Jose, based on some policy direction as well as practice, is financial incentives. The landfills also have financial incentives as well as the haulers and generators, because there's a $13 per ton disposal facility tax. So at the landfills, you'll find that they do as much recycling as they can anyway. One of the things that we're finding somewhat problematic is that the landfills, some of them are using large amounts of concrete as beneficial use. And it's unfortunate when you start looking at it in the disposal reporting system, because it's a beneficial use, but it's a one-time beneficial use. There are markets in place that could easily accept that material, move it back into the mainstream, into roads and parking lots and things like that. So that's a challenge for us in trying to find a way to influence it. But in closing, again, we came up with our program looking at the types of materials that were getting buried in the landfill, focused on what infrastructure we had in place and what we could do to influence that infrastructure. And a key component of this that drives the program really is the facility certification. We're finding that people who don't even do or pull permits within the city, those materials by and large are staying within San Jose and getting to the facilities and getting recycled anyway.